Hey there. So I am going to be talking about your buttons. There we go. Really, this is about how we're making a transition to the way that we move about in the world. And a lot of it is through kind of like how we think about it from a technology perspective. So it's not so much about, the ideas that, we knew we were going to get in the 50s and 60s, which of course back then was mini nuclear or Star Trek's dilithium crystals. It ends up coming back to really that promise being delivered by batteries. And in the beginning, the rechargeable batteries were a phenomenal breakthrough. So that's 50 years ago. That's the Motorola. It's about 1973, and it was incredible. You could actually talk on it for 30 minutes, and it only took 10 hours to charge. And it also radically shifted the way that we think about how we move about in the world and how we stay connected in the world. However, that quickly led to the challenges that came from that, which is that we immediately demanded more because we got a very early sense of what that freedom felt like to be able to move about, to be able to stay connected. But the baggage, of course, is that the charge anxiety that comes along with it when 10 hours is no longer good enough, when an hour isn't good enough, when half an hour isn't good enough. And then, of course, the waste when we're constantly churning through the different products that we have, whether those be, of course, the cell phones, the tablets, the computers, and of course also the EVs. So that leaves us with the challenges that we're constantly facing is that, the source for that, mobility, which is the power, which is the rechargeable battery, is never really able to keep up with what the demands are that are constantly shifting. Right, and there's a classic line in the industry, which is liars, damn liars, and battery suppliers. And it's both true, but it's also on the harsh side. And that's really because every time that we think we've got this fantastic breakthrough, it ends up being not nearly good enough. The other challenges that we have is that those who are coming out of PhD programs with this wonder material that works in a thimble doesn't necessarily have a path to real scale, to real growth, to be able to be sold for less than $3,000 per milligram. And so that's a lot of the challenges that we're constantly having, whether it's with say a solid state or any of the new kind of like weird, strange materials that we've got. All of them ultimately have to be able to be produced at scale to be able to deliver. Now, the battery industry is basically growing at about 25%. However, the total energy demand on the world is about 50% and growing. So it can only do about half. So within that, we start to come to a new solution, which is you're starting to see this out in real products now. And that's silicon batteries. And the way that they work is that they don't require your battery manufacturers to change all of their equipment to be able to do new batteries, new lines, new architectures. They can actually roll into existing architecture, existing basically materials, or even blendable in a lot of cases, which with our case is, so that they can be implemented very, very, very quickly. So for us, whether that is through your classic kind of cylinder, which you see, which like with the Panasonic, or you see with the Teslas, there's also, of course, the pouch, which is in all of your phones and all of your tablets and laptops, also being used in cars. And then there's the prism cell as well. Some of the EV auto manufacturers work across all three of those platforms that we're helping to provide for all of them. For us, we're at scale now, we're delivering, and our products, or I should say our material is in millions of cell phones in China right now through our partner ATL, which is the world's largest cell phone battery manufacturer. If you've got an Apple or a Google, chances are you're carrying an ATL cell right now. We are also in various qualification stages with, let's just say, dozens of the automotive OEMs and EV companies that are out there looking to really accelerate what they're being able to do. Because, of course, it's not just the commercial products like the phones and the laptops that are having challenges. It's the EVs that are generating the charge anxiety that we have right now. Because, of course, we want it to be able to charge like, the same way that we go to the gas station. But it's with new materials like silicon and silicon batteries and what we're doing with our material, which is SE55, that we're actually able to help deliver on that. So we've got this little thing that kind of like gives a cartoonish version to show you what we're doing. And that is, the scaffold, which we do with a hard carbon, and we actually inject that with a silane gas that then turns into a silicon within that. Silicon works basically to help capture all the lithium. So most of what we all talk about and we hear about when we talk about batteries and all of the rare earths that we're having challenges with, the NMCs, the LFPs, all of that stuff, all of that happens in the cathode side. That's where all of the lithium is held. But it has to be transferred and held somewhere, and that's where the graphite is usually at, which is about 60% of the battery. However, graphite comes basically from about one place in the world at 95%, which is China, causing some serious logistic challenges. It also doesn't even work that good from when you think about it in terms of what our demands are. It did, but however, now we need even more. So silicon, which can hold about 10 times as much graphite, is fantastic in what it can do for that aspect, but it also has swelling challenges. But if you can house it in something like a carbon scaffold to allow for it to be able to expand and contract safely, you can actually use it safely and use it at scale. So for us, when we're able to increase energy density by up to 75% of the cathode, that gives about a 50% increase in density. It also has the beauty of allowing for ultra-fast charging. So maybe some of you have read recently about Polestar, who's now able to charge a vehicle from 10 to 80% in about under 10 minutes. That's through silicon batteries. That's how they're able to do that, right? It's starting to actually make its way into viable use cases for where we're at in the different stages of our vehicles. We're going to be seeing a whole lot more of that, whether it's through partners like ours through Porsche or through our different suppliers that are coming through, because we're working with about 90% or more of the world's battery manufacturers when it comes to actually moving to the next stage. The challenge that ultimately we're having, which is what always goes back to those poor battery suppliers and damn liars, is that being able to make that jump from the lab to scale is incredibly difficult. It's not just the product innovation that has to happen, the material innovation that happens, it also has to be about the process. So when we work on those two innovations together, which we generally term as applied innovation, which is like applied science, that's where the magic really happens. That's the kind of beautiful, simple, elegant solution that allows us to be able to take it to scale. So we use a process that we call modular manufacturing. It is a two-step process that happens within this, but each one of these modules can deliver about 2,000 tons of material, which is equal to about 10 gigawatts of silicon battery production a year. Through this kind of modular design, we're able to actually start ramping up factories faster. We don't have to do some massive, million square foot facility in a single hit to be able to turn the factory on. The second the first module turns on, the factory's running. And then we just start adding modules after that. So this is what's allowing us to be able to move at scale as fast as possible to be able to deliver materials for all of this demand that's coming. Now, what it looks like in real life is these are the first two modules that are in Washington State. Both of these are going to be coming online expected later this year. The one that's nearly finished, once that one is turned on, which should be around Q3, the factory's up and running. There's a second module behind it that's coming online, and it will just continue to add after that. We also need to be able to have global capabilities. So we've got a joint venture with our partner SK, which is one of the world's top 5 battery manufacturers. And we've got a joint venture with them for another module. As you can see, it looks pretty much exactly the same. That is in the final stages of commissioning in South Korea. So that allows us to be able to do dual sourcing. It also allows us to radically decarbonize logistics and logistical challenges. So whether we're having issues like pandemics that shut down shipping, or we're having natural disasters, which can also cause issues with shipping and logistics, we're able to now deliver identical platforms and identical products multiple places throughout the world. What's not on here is that you can see there's the super bright lit area. That's a silane factory. SK is the world's second largest silane manufacturer in the world, one of the major reasons we partnered with them. We've also recently acquired our own silane capabilities through an acquisition for Schmidt Silicon in Germany and a silane factory there that we're going to be turning on as well. So we're looking at having capabilities global within the next half year to 8 year that allows us to be able to deliver materials all over the world. And the reason why we're doing that is because it's this kind of modular thinking about being able to plug and play factories globally. That's the only real way that we see being able to deliver on a solution for all of the battery needs that we have. And it's not just really about new product coming out or even single factory design coming out, but about being able to deploy that at scale to be able to meet needs of battery manufacturing, the decarbonization that's happening, and also framing it in a way that allows you to have massive heat recapture and reuse, abatement, right? So our factory designs right now have about a 40% abatement capability, and we're looking to ramp that even further. We're also kind of playing with what our materials are that we're using as precursors to be able to keep that as low cost and localized as possible. So we've got global deployment with localized capabilities to be able to secure supply chains from any given region. And that's really what it's going to be able to take to help look at the challenges that we're having from a battery perspective and to start easing that. So whether that's deploying product in the US or in the EU or in Asia to be able to meet all those different manufacturing needs, that's really kind of the cusp of where we're at now and actually delivering on right now. And so I think what it really starts to do is to shape up really what we think about possible futures. And this gets us back to the flying cars, right? Because when you look at eVTOLs and electric aviation, their biggest challenge has been that they need a better battery. They need denser capabilities that therefore lighten the craft to be able to make their model work. Those are now coming to market. So we're starting to see that through the Jobies, or here locally it's Vertical or Volocopter or all of the others that are starting to really come up and move into that final phase through FAA testing. They're starting to actually really look at deployment, and it's becoming something that is much closer to the reality it was than, like, say, when this shot was done 2 or 3 years ago. This was a Hyundai exhibit that was at CES 2020, I think, and it was a very positive kind of idea about what it could be, but it was always kind of held back by some of the technologies to get us there. But through finally making breakthroughs for future technology to being a now technology, that's something that can really happen. So whether it's sustainable cities and bringing down our decarbonization, or it's looking at ways that we can start to radically think about product, because if all of a sudden you're looking at batteries that can be 25% smaller and lighter and still have the same capabilities, you start radically rethinking what those products can be, right? How they start working and being able to help us when we move about in the world. And as fun as looking at future product is and thinking about what those capabilities are, I think the really big one for me is also looking at what that means from that decarbonization perspective. So this was a story that came out right around the time that I was coming on board with Group 14, and it's really stayed with me. I lived in LA for a while as well, and the idea that within literally a couple of months we got crystal clear skies over LA, that India was in Delhi, they were able to see the Himalaya for the first time in 25 years, was revelatory. And so I think the thing that for me is really that kind of like bold prediction that I look for. It's not that I think something is going to happen specifically. It's that I think the opportunities and the empowering that we're going to be able to have for technologies to deliver on this wave that we've been promised is far closer than we think it is. Thanks.